You adapt to the challenges of hiring remotely. This brings faster hiring, reduces bias, and gives your engineers more time to solve problems that matter. That's why we're already working with some of the best engineering teams in the world. Schedule a demo with us to learn how we can help you shape the future of work today. Codility. Remote tech hiring everywhere.
Hello. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone out who is joining the webinar, and thanks especially to our panelists who are taking the time to join us and share their experience. Today we'll be discussing really interesting topic about developing future engineering leaders. I'm really looking forward to hearing what our great panelists have to share with us. So maybe let's start with a short round of introduction. I can start. I'm Nataliya. I'm engineering manager at Codility. I made this transition within the company, starting as front-end engineer and now leading the team. So I'm very excited to know and heard what you can share with us. So tell us a bit about yourself and your background in engineering. Who wants to start? Maybe Sachin.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thanks, Nataliya. Hi, everyone. This is Sachin Patil. I am a software architect and manager at Amdocs. I joined Amdocs as a junior software engineer, and since then, I held variety of roles such as tech lead, business specialist, manager, architect. And in my current role, I help a team of 30 to 35 engineers, business analysts, tech leads with software engineering practices, and developing and migrating many enterprise applications.
Okay, great experience. Okay, maybe passing to Noga.
Hey everyone, I'm Noga. I'm an engineering manager at Figma currently. My background, I've been working at Salesforce, Google, and a bunch of other companies, as well as on my own startup for a while. I also started a nonprofit organization called Queen Bee that teaches young girls how to code and help young women find their first job in the industry. And yeah, that's it. Really happy to be here today.
Great. And Ryan.
Hello, everyone. I'm an engineering manager at Yelp. I'm predominantly responsible for purchasing infrastructure, so all the infrastructure that powers purchases at Yelp. And my background is largely in finance and advertising, so worked on a lot of trading platforms for a lot of stockbrokers and things like that. Yeah, really happy to be here and help where I can.
Okay, so let's go to our questions, and maybe we can start another round from starting with Ryan. And can you maybe share with us what does the onboarding process look like for juniors at your company, and maybe how you support in remote hybrid working environment?
Yeah, sure. So I think there's definitely two parts to an onboarding process. I think first of all, it's it's the process and the things that go with that. But then there's also the environmental aspect to it. So the environment needs to be right to onboard people well. Some of the process things, make sure they're supported. So any employee resource groups, things like that, make that obvious to them from the start. Have an onboarding plan for them. That might sound quite obvious, but it's really important. Have you identified a path for them to learn in the best way? Have you got a bunch of work for them that stretches them and challenges them? Because junior engineers have high hopes when they join a company. It's a stressful time and they're really vulnerable. So they need to be stretched and shown that actually they're going to work on important stuff and fun stuff. So that's a really important part of it. And then the environmental stuff, like how do you demonstrate work-life boundaries? Do you have regular socials, virtual offsites, things like that? So that would be how we would onboard them. But then there's also how do you define the career path? So do you have a career path? What is there, instead of just setting that short-term goal, what is the 3-month goal, the 6-month goal, the 9-month goal? Making those expectations very clear.
Okay, yeah, nice, thank you. Noga, maybe you can also add something.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything Ryan said. I also want to add that I feel like one of the more important things as part of the process, the onboarding process and period, is setting very clear expectations. I feel like setting the right expectations for what do you expect this engineer to be able to do at the end of his first day, week, month, 3 month, really helps, especially for people that are that might have imposter syndrome, for example. That really helps them understand if they're making good progress or not, and not like overthinking and comparing themselves to maybe the more senior folks in the team that might just have a different pace and definitely like they're not expected to match them right on their first day or week. So I found this to be really important. I also find it important to give very small tasks as first tasks for early career engineers. That leads to small wins and slowly building confidence, and also having maybe the opportunity to repeat processes such as opening a PR, getting a review, getting it merged, is definitely something they can benefit from. So even like if this is a task that a more experienced engineer would do as just one task, it would be good to break it down to smaller bites for people that this might be their first job.
Yeah, like this idea of small wins, like it's really great because you know from your experience when like you're starting work in big tasks, it's like hard to see like the progress, and like when you're having the smaller, it's really easier. And maybe Sachin, you have also some
Yeah,
experience
definitely.
to share.
What Noga and Ryan covered is pretty much what we consider as well. Another aspect that I think is more important is considering the cognitive load that we are putting on those candidates or the new engineers, right? Because there's so many things to learn at very first job of yours. There's so many tools, technology, and engineering practices that come in play, right? So I believe, and as Noga mentioned, right, giving them smaller tasks can give an exposure to different areas of engineering. That also includes, let's say, interaction with the clients and business, for example, right? So having building that confidence over the period of time with the smaller task and well-defined task is very crucial. Yeah.
Okay, great. And like we are coming to the thing, like what also was very important for me when I joined as junior, like mentoring. What does mentoring looks like in your company, and how do you ensure junior engineers like feel supported? Maybe Noga, you can share with us.
Yeah, definitely. So at Figma, as I think in most companies, every new hire gets an onboarding buddy that supports them through their first few weeks or months. And with early career engineers, what we usually do is even give them more than one mentor or buddy. One is more of a professional mentor, and they will usually be also working very closely with them, like joining their project, which I think is really important. And in Figma in general, we really believe in collaborative working. And I think that engineers on their first role can learn a lot from pair programming with a more experienced engineer and working very closely with them, as well as just having another person that has your project in mind and is like helping driving it forward is really crucial at these first steps. And we also have like a more social buddy, which is someone that usually might have been also joining the company as their first job or as an internship. So just having another friendly face and another person you can go to and talk to, on top of your more professional mentor, and of course your manager and every other teammate that you have.
Oh, it looks like really nice process. I also enjoy like being a junior, like having this pair programming session with my mentor. It helped me a lot and like helping growing like in faster than I will be doing it on my own. Maybe Ryan, you can add something.
Yes, I think in terms of process and ensuring there's like an equal level of mentors, I think one thing that could be considered and something we do is like mentors can get training as well. So you can teach like certain parts of like pair programming and things like this. But it's also like environmentally, it's also important to consider that it's really, as I've said this before, but it's a really vulnerable time in your life, being a junior engineer going into this new environment, and you need psychological safety. So it's important for the whole team, not just the mentor, to know that mentoring isn't a job requirement, it's a culture, it's a shared responsibility. So things like getting your senior engineers to fail publicly, and getting them to admit their mistakes and how they're going to learn from it, and showing empathy to that, I think, can really help junior engineers to understand that, okay, it's actually okay to fail. It's actually okay to learn. And that's the only way you're really going to learn, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Sachin.
Yeah, at Amdocs, we usually provide 60 days of onboarding process that involves, having a buddy or a mentor working alongside with them on a regular or daily basis. During the remote work, I guess that becomes a little difficult because it's hard to gauge the progress that they're making. But having someone checking with them on a daily or regular, let's say every 2-3 hours, is very beneficial. So I guess, yeah, even at the same time, empathizing with them is really important too, because they are not really used to this working in remote environments, right? So that's also very important from the mentor's perspective. So I guess we also have some sort of mentoring the mentor programs, where they can understand how to mentor the new joiners, new engineers.
Okay, it's nice, like a great experience, I think, for like your juniors who are joining your company. And maybe let's like take a step back and think about like our beginning, like what was something important that you learned from your mentor during the early stages of your career? Maybe Ryan, you can share with us.
Yeah, I think I'd when I was a junior, I'd maybe on the call, but I had a mentor, Dan. And he told me that intellectual humility is really important. There's a difference between intelligence and arrogance, and you should always surround yourself with people that aid your discovery. So when you ask them a question like, how do they help you? Do they ask you questions that ask for your opinion, rather than giving you answers that is designed to make you go away? That's a big difference for me. And it's like I learned to always surround myself with people that want to help me because they're good people, rather than want to help me because it's a job requirement. Yeah, intellectual humility.
Okay, nice. And what maybe you learned, Noga, during the early stages of your career?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me are really small habits, but that are really important for me today, like the way I manage my to-do list, or the way I take notes from a meeting. A lot of these small things, like I remember my mentoring buddy told me it's a good idea to write everything you learned on that day. That is like a really nice habit that encourages your learning and also allows you to then share it with others, which is a real multiplier for a junior engineer starting a new role, and being able to not only learn but also like share the learnings with the rest of the team. And also, for example, like how to ask questions, like how to document what I've already done before reaching out to someone, and how to help them help me in a way that they're not just giving away the answer, but helping me understand where they found this answer or how they got to it, and where I can find it next time I run into something similar. So I think, yeah, it's mostly those small habits that can go a really long way. And I think that when people are just starting out, they can learn a lot from the role models that surround them. So it's a really great opportunity to share those habits that you might take for granted with them.
Yeah, I think I will second that. And like what also I learned from my mentor and during my early stages, like how important is to ask questions, and like making sure like it's you're not asking like bad questions, but also like it's helping you to learn. And like fun fact, when I was joining Codility, my on the interview, my my colleague and now like my direct report was coming to me with like one of like my home tasks and like showing, okay, you are here, you're having a bug. I was like, okay, that's all. I'm not going like to proceed with this company and anything. But he showed me how to improve it and like how to ask question about like what we can do together, like how he can support us, me in this process. So it was like really great. And like I recall like my first 3 months is like working closely with him. Like it was still like time when we were in the office, so it was easier and like we were sitting together. But it's like made me sure that okay, it's okay to make mistakes, but like having someone who will support you and like making it better is really also great. Okay, and maybe Sachin about
Yeah,
your like
yeah,
beginning.
absolutely. When I joined Amdocs, okay, I mean, I had an opportunity to work with not one but two, three mentors, and I think one of the important aspects of mentoring is or joining the workforce is understanding the accountability and ownership. These two aspects are, I think, really important because these are not easily taught, and these go along, I mean, long way in your career. If you go if you build your career as an engineer, as an architect, as a manager, doesn't matter wherever you go, these two aspects are, is what I like to put into engineers mind, so that first thing is they have to have clarity on what they are doing, be it small task or bigger task. But having accountability and ownership, taking the accountability and ownership is very crucial for them.
Okay, yeah, it's for sure. And like let's start thinking about like how we are like knowing that we are hiring the right junior, like how to understand like okay, it's like right fit to your team and like with someone like it's not getting the right level of mentorship. Maybe have you experienced something like this and like how like you are approaching to this kind of situation? Maybe Noga?
Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with that. But what I think is important in that situation is, or in general, to let junior engineers not only work with one person who is their buddy or mentor, but try to give them as much exposure to the rest of the team and maybe even people from other team. Also, like not shield them from other people in the company, like let them work as much as possible with their product manager, with their designer, with whoever else your team is working with. And I think that can really help gain a better understanding of, in the case of if there are doubts about the performance of this IC, is this an actual problem, or maybe that's just a mismatch with their mentor, which I think could be pretty common. And maybe it doesn't mean that that particular engineer isn't a right fit for your team, but maybe they just weren't assigned with the right mentor, and that's like a lot easier to fix. So yeah, that's my thinking of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really great. Brian, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just think the attitude is really important to understand here, like how you think about this. So we're all human beings, right? So it's not every role is right for every person. So I think it's really important to understand when you're going through this process is that this person might just not be in the right chair for them. Is there a role in another team? Because it might not always be performance based. It might be working patterns or things like this. So is there a role in another team? Is there any other opportunity in your organization? So yeah, give them dedicated time, stay in close contact, but don't micromanage them, obviously. And offer help, because you can leave the door open and offer that help, but you can't force someone through that door. And the more you try to force them through that door, the more they'll back away from it. So it's just important to understand that not every role is right for every person. It's just about helping people find that right role for them.
Absolutely. I guess everyone has different learning curve, right? I mean, some might understand some technologies better than the others, but in the long run, I think, as I mentioned earlier, right, if you see any lack of accountability or ownership, I think that's a sign of an unfit candidate. So it could be either they lost an interest, or it could be they are not, understanding the expectations that the managers or the client have. So that's in my perspective, is also a good sign.
Yeah, and I start thinking like it's good like when you have like feelings it's right fit or not, but also like it's also important to support mentors, because I recall like one part when I was mentor, and like I was like so happy like that, okay, we will be having a junior in our team. So like I think I was preparing like this whole process about onboarding and how it will be going, and like once the person joined, like the person has really different attitude about like parent programming and focusing on the task a bit different than I, and like was okay, I need to adjust whole my process. And like it was also important for me to realize, okay, this whole mentorship, it's about this person. It's not about me like showing that I can be a great mentor, but also like helping the like people like to grow and like supporting it. And I think it's important.
Yeah, going back to Sasha's point about accountability, that is huge. That's a really good one. I think not only accountability over your work on a day-to-day basis and to clients, whoever the clients of your team are, internal or external, but also to yourself. So, like on your career, you can define a career path, but it's going to go nowhere if you're not accountable to yourself in learning that. So you got that far as a junior. This person needs to be passionate enough to go the next step. So I think accountability is massive.
Yeah. And maybe like let's think, okay, like we prepared a mentoring for our juniors, and how do you see this, like what is most important like when guiding junior that building their career path? Like what thing maybe you all can share, like how you are supporting juniors, and maybe what help you to like to build your career path?
Yeah, I can go ahead. I think that it's really difficult for a lot of people to like build their career path, and usually when talking to engineers or people in general, like where do they see themselves in a few years, it's like not an easy question to answer. So I guess my advice to people that are very early in their career is just to experiment as much as possible and try a lot of new things. Like, don't lock your mind on something like, I only want to do back end or front end, or I hate CSS, or I don't know, things that people get caught up with without having like a lot of experience with. So my advice would definitely be just try new things out. And after a while, you will get an understanding of what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and then it's a lot easier to have those conversations. And obviously it's not just a matter of technology, it's also a matter of do you enjoy project management and you want to be leading projects more, interacting with other teams, interacting with cross-functional roles, or do you want to focus more on like deep complicated technical problems, because there are a lot of ways your career can go. So just try new things and learn as you go.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's very important, to also have a constant feedback about how you're progressing, either with your mentor or your manager. And trying new things is absolutely, adds exposure to your career. And once you have that feedback loop going on, you understand what you are really good at and what you're passionate about. I agree.
Yeah, I think a career path needs to be flexible, because like as a junior engineer, I change my mind monthly on what I wanted to do. Sometimes I wanted to be back end, sometimes be front end, sometimes I wanted to be an engineering manager, sometimes I didn't, sometimes I just wanted to go down more architectural routes. Yeah, I think it's important for it to be flexible, not too set in stone. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. And like even like as you Noga mentioned about like not sticking to someone else, to like front and back end or something. I recall when I was like really starting, I was really wanted to be a mobile developer and got really not that nice feedback about like some of part of my code doing for university, and I was okay, so no way I can become like mobile developer. I changed my path. I go to web development, but I think now I'm looking into it, like you can get a lot of like sometimes constructive, sometimes positive feedback, but sometimes like without no reasons. And like it's important to remember, like when you're a junior, you're trying, you're learning. Like it's no way like you will have the everything working the best like from the beginning. Okay, so like you also know that a lot of juniors come with different backgrounds, and like what do you cater to different learning styles? Like they can work like learn in different. How you approach it? Like, are you following the same process, or you're adjusting it to everyone?
I think we need to adjust it to everyone, depending on, as I mentioned, right, depending on the cognitive load of everyone that can take. It all depends on how well they can grasp or absorb the learning experience, or uh, either through video sessions or live sessions. Some people, and I have worked with so many engineers that some people really need a constant guidance on a weekly basis or daily basis. So that's also we can cater to an individual's needs and requirements. So it all depends on everyone's cognitive load and their ability to grasp things quickly. Or yeah.
Yeah, I think in general, there's no like one size fits all, not just with junior engineers, but with engineers in general. I mean, some would want to have regular one-on-ones like on a weekly basis. Some feel like that's too much and want to do that every other week. Some would love to talk to you every day. So I think it's good to have that flexibility in general, not just with junior engineers, but as a manager, adjust yourself as much as possible to the needs and preferences of different people on your team.
Yeah, I think to understand someone's learning style, I think there's like two ways that first of all, you can ask them, you can talk to them and say like, how do you best learn? It could be one thing, it could be a mixture of things. And second, like understand how they've learned in the past. So are they self-taught? Did they go to university? Did they go to a boot camp, or is it a mixture of things? How have they learned on learning themselves when they've had to, when there's not been a company guiding them? So that's a good way of doing it. And as a company, you can offer different methods of learning. So you can have workshops, lunch and learns, for example. You can have office hours with really senior engineers that might be an architect on some part of infrastructure that you want to learn about. You can have pair programming if they learn by doing, and if they learn by reading, you have like wikis and development budgets so they can spend on themselves.
Yeah, I think,
Yeah,
and sometimes people like to have hands-on experience, which is where we can give them small projects or POCs that, as per your project needs, that's what we usually do as well, to get them hands-on on projects so that they can fit into apply their learn experience learnings to the real projects.
Yeah, it's something like really important. Like just try to adjust the process. Like even like looking not only in juniors, but also like our direct reports, we are working like no one is the same, and like we are not able like to follow the same process, like even on our one-on-ones with like each of the engineers. Like you need to adjust and like making sure like, because we are here all about people and like trying to support them, help them, and like make sure like they're growing, and like it's the main part for juniors, like because they're a bit scary and everything, and like what we can do is like just trying to make this life easier and like adjusting the process to how they really want to work and like want to start. But also I think sometimes it's important to give some directions, because it's not easy for them like to know how to ask a lot of questions, and like they can start with the process. Okay, I will not ask because my mentor is not like supporting me with it or something. Okay, so maybe like if you're talking about like asking question, like adjusting this process, how do you identify the needs of your juniors engineers to ensure they're met? Like maybe Ryan, you can share with us.
I think the first thing is communication. I think you need to understand what they're expecting, because as a junior engineer coming into a company, like I had high hopes. You don't want to be, I didn't want to be anyway, working on the really easy stuff forever. You have to do that to get them involved. Like, for example, pull requests and Git commands and things like that. Like really like important basics that they need to get familiar with. But I think from that, you need to understand what they want to do and how does that align to any particular roadmap, if you've got any projects coming up ahead, and see how you can stretch them. Because I think most engineers, junior engineers, might tell you that like out of nerves, they're not comfortable with something, but really I think if you stretch them, I think they might surprise themselves. So it's about taking their needs and like maybe taking that one step further. Saying what they want, taking that one step further to really challenge them. And when you challenge them, just let them know like it's okay to fail, right? It's like this is a no blame culture, and it's okay. We'll just learn from it, and that's half the reason why we're doing it, really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think like important stuff and like what we can do, like also share about our experience, like that your needs was okay. Like in my beginning, I need a lot like help and like asking questions, but after like 3 months, it was like, okay, I want to do everything on my own. Like don't touch me, like let me like go code and like push and like create merge requests, and like after I can see it, you can make a comment, but like I think it's also constantly evolving. Like on the beginning, we can start with something, but in future, it's better like to ask. And I think we need to constantly asking the question like, do you like the still process? Can we adjust it? Like maybe you won't like to change anything. So yeah, maybe Noga, also from your experience.
Yeah, I really agree with what you're saying. I think it's and also with what Ryan brought up, I think it's important to create that safe space between you as a manager and your report to talk about those things. And I think, Nataliya, the method you brought up by sharing like your own experience is definitely a great way for us as managers to build that trust with our reports and encourage them to do the same and share their learnings. And I can only say that it takes time. People open up at different times and they have different communication styles, and it takes time to learn that and to understand like what's the best way to bring those topics up and really get some meaningful answers and get to meaningful discussions and decisions with those engineers.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think open communication will be the key there. Like just like asking question, getting the answer, like asking one more question, like and like making sure like we are listening also, because sometimes we are just missing this feedback from engineers.
Right. And I think we also need to have a balance between the engineer's interest and the project needs, right? Because from my experience, I had a junior engineer, who learned Python, for example, as a programming language during his academics and in university. And our project did not have the Python, but had Java projects, right? So um, that's where the clear communication, as Ryan mentioned, came into play, where we really sat down together and understood the different aspects of the programming languages, and what's more important for them is to get into these best software practices. And at the end of the project, he was very happy that he get to work on projects like enterprise project on Java platform, and he kind of carried over, I guess, on the same platform.
Yeah, it's like as you mentioned, like sometimes we need to adjust the path, but if you're like openly communicating that, okay, like that's, I know that you want to learn something like this language or that language, but let's try this one.
Exactly.
Because like it's like more important, and like it's also like showing them that we want to help them like to develop in what they want, but also like you're still working in this company, and like we need like try to meet all the ways. Yeah. Absolutely. And like maybe we can like think about, yeah, we have different ways, different paths, and like let's get like more in details about like how do you support like juniors engineers in like remote hybrid working environment? Like it's different when I was a junior, when I joined, like I was funny, it was like really good, like coming to the office, working with my mentor, like sitting like close and like easier. But now like mostly all the companies are moving to remote hybrid working environment. How you manage it? Like how you support your engineers? Maybe Noga, you can share.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a challenge. I feel like we mentioned that in general, it's important to be very accessible for people who are joining as their first role, and giving them a lot of feedback and giving them a lot of space to ask questions. And I think that when working remotely, it's even more important, since they can't just look over your shoulder and see what you're doing, or hear random discussions going on in the office, or see what other people are struggling with. So I think that in that case, it's really important to be like 10x more accessible and give them that space for both discussions and also asking questions. Just as an example, even setting up time every day with their mentor or their manager for asking any questions. And of course, it's okay to cancel that or have no questions to bring up, but for you to be offering your time in a much more explicit way, because I've heard a lot about people that are like staring at their Slack, trying to rethink, should I send this message or shouldn't I? How will I look if I ask that question? So just like making it very, very obvious and really inviting them to ask as much as possible. And also, yeah, again, giving them as much feedback as possible.
Yeah, it's also like coming, like it's not only about juniors like having the showing this time, but like for example in our case when we are having onboarding, we are trying to have like each day or like each second day, like to have these small things, like just to make sure that new engineer, because you can like be very experienced, you can like know everything mostly, but when you're like getting like to the company with big code base, it's like really easy to get stuck, like feeling that okay, I'm supported, like it's really great because it's showing that you are taking care of them. Maybe Ryan, about your experience with remote hybrid.
Yeah, I think it was tough, to be honest with you, because I've only really been doing it for the past couple of years, since COVID. I didn't do any of it before, so it was quite a fast and hard learning for me, and everyone around me actually. It wasn't just me. I think it's important. One of my early leaders like led by example. So like, how are your working hours? Are you responding at midnight? And like, how do you react? Like, have you got Slack on your phone and things like this? I'm not saying that it's a good thing to have or not have it, but like, set the culture you want. You should lead by example. You should establish those boundaries between personal and work time. Because I think in the life pre-COVID, when like, for example, when I'd go home on the train, it'd be a lot easier to switch off for me. My computer was at work, everything was at work. There was a like clear boundary, but for me, my office is always with me. Really, it's in my pocket most of the time. So it's really important to create those boundaries and stick to them. And it can be hard, to be honest with you. It can be difficult. I think, especially as a junior, just realize that you've got plenty of time in your career to respond to messages and look at this project and do this task and make this progress. You've got so much time. It will be fine. Just go and watch that TV program or cook that dinner or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, it's true. And Sachin, share
Right. I
about
think,
your.
yeah, I think what Noga mentioned, one of the important learning experience that the engineers are missing these days is looking over the shoulder, right? Because that's how I remember I learned many different, engineering practices, how to what design principles I'm applying, right? For example, or big because all the software that we write or design, right, um, are based on the experiences that our mentors had, right? So that's when I think in the remote environment, what we do or what I usually like to do is share screens on a regular basis, show why particular design decision was made, how to write, probably test cases, or and how to set up an environment, and so on and so forth. That way they can't look over the shoulder, but I can give them a view of my style of working, and or whoever the experienced engineers are, and that way they can gain most of the experience in the remote environments, I guess.
Yeah, as you
Mhm.
share, like you that it's important to share like how you work. It's like, for
Yes.
example, Ryan shared about like, for me, like it was really easier like to turn off the laptop and staying like in office than like when I was working from home. Like it's still with me. I can like turn it on and like check my email or something. So yeah, and like maybe before we'll be going to the like last question, let's think about like about how do you handle it when you think that the new developer is not qualified for a job, and like how you're like selecting this junior to the role. Maybe some of you would like to share with us.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a really good question, and it's a tough one. I think you need first step is to have a retrospective. So, are your assumptions right? Why have you made these assumptions? Can you go back to the engineer and work with them, have a bit more empathy, and set some goals, set some weekly goals that they might want to try and achieve. Some short-term goals, not long-term goals at this point. Set some short-term goals that might try and either confirm or deny what the probably assumptions you've made from talking to them, observing with them. So talk to them, be honest, let them know your expectations, and set them goals. And also have a retrospective on your, like, if it doesn't turn out for the best, like, what are your hiring practices? Is there any way you can improve? Then, did your mentorship practices let them down? Did you let them down? Was it something else? Because it's normally a larger picture than just an individual. It normally is.
Yeah, like totally agree. And like you never know what will be the best way to know. Like, but for example, like trying to check and like making like sure like you're feeling comfortable with making the decision. Okay, it's not right. It's also important. Maybe like last thoughts from your Noga or Sachin.
Yeah, I really agree with what you both said. I think it's definitely important to set the right expectations and make sure that I think Ryan was referring to some of the assumptions we made when hiring that person, but I think that there are maybe other assumptions that we take for granted and what we expect an engineer to do. And maybe that just wasn't clear for that person. So definitely make sure that everything is said very explicitly, and always giving them a chance to improve on that and being very open and transparent about that. And if after that process you see no improvement, obviously there's nothing to do and you can part ways. Always like try to give the most honest feedback you can to just help that person in the rest of their path.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we need to consider it as an investment into those juniors engineers, because if you are spending more time, or or optimize our time with them, and optimize their learning, I think that it will benefit us as well as them in the long run, because if they are comfortable with us, and I guess people also say that you don't leave the company, you leave your manager, for example, right? So that's also very important, to make them comfortable and empathize with them, so that they not only learn from you, but they also stay with you for a longer period, so that you get your return on investment.
Yeah, so yeah, great answers. And let's like wrapping up, and let's share one key takeaway you would like to leave at this space. Maybe Ryan, you can start.
Yeah, just understand that as a junior, you've got a long career ahead of you, and the likelihood is that you and your mentor and your team won't be in the same place forever. There will come a day when you part ways. Just enjoy it, make the most of each other, make friends, and just have fun.
Yeah, maybe Noga.
Yeah, sure. I think my takeaway is that early career engineers aren't that different from any other engineer. They will all benefit from you as a manager to be setting clear expectations and having regular quality one-on-ones with them, working collaboratively with the rest of the team and getting a lot of feedback and safe space for asking questions. But for people early in their career, they might need more space, more time, and a bit more structure around that, because they also might not be, they don't know yet what they need. So just help them discover that. And also, one last thing is that I think that while interacting with more senior engineers, they can benefit a lot from seeing those role models and learning from them. But again, it could also lead to having imposter syndrome, looking at other people that have a lot more experience and comparing yourself to them. So I just think it's really important to surface that and discuss that as a way of dealing with it.
Yeah, like give it a try and like allow yourself to make mistakes. I think like my key takeaway. And like Sachin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for junior engineers or the new engineers aspiring, to make their career, I believe being curious and at the same time exploring the different roles or responsibilities this software industry has to offer, because this software industry is evolving and there are lots of different roles and that you can play, not limited to what you are doing right now, but exploring, having a constant feedback loop with your managers is will also help you in the long run.
Okay, great answers, great thoughts. So we are coming to the end of our time. So I just want to say again, thank you, our panelists, great answers and like great thoughts. And like I for sure have some key takeaways taking with me. So also like thank you for everyone who joined us and will watch the recording later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.